Hello, folks. I want to point out that you have this cool presentation. It's simplified. It's a little shorter than the one that I gave you last week, but it'll cover the main ideas about structuring your essay. Might help you with your outline this week. So, you already know this. You've moved from your narrative to your exploratory research with your they say, I say assignments, and now you are going into your research paper. This is an informational report. You are going to inform your readers using it should have a tightly focused topic. It should be accurate information, well-researched information. You've put your information through the CRAP test. You've evaluated it for its purpose. Why is it out there in the world? Is it trying to sell us something or to inform us? If it's trying to sell us something or persuade us, maybe toss it to the side and find something that's here to inform. You're going to be using appropriate citation in text and in a works cited page. This demonstrates your ethos, your credibility as an author, and also gives credit where it is due. And we want to honor the work of others and avoid plagiarism. It's also going to include logical organization and transitions between paragraphs. Please watch the YouTube video I posted about transitions. I think that's going to be helpful to you. Also look at your chapters 8 and 9. For examples of ways to transition between paragraphs and within paragraphs to get us from one idea to another idea. The purpose of an informational report is just that, to inform. It is not here to argue or advocate for a cause. It is not to persuade. It is not to break our hearts or make us laugh. It is not to tell us a personal story. It is not to get us to get riled up. It is only to inform. Give your reader something they can use. You might be researching something that interests you, and I sure hope it does, but you are presenting in service of your audience. What do they need to know, and how can you provide the information they need? To this end, you're going to use the neutral third-person voice. You're not going to say I throughout the whole essay. You're going to use the neutral third-person voice. So let's go on. The introduction is where a lot of the heavy lifting takes place. We want to have a lot of the good who, what, where, what, when, and how, why, all that good stuff, the 5 W's and an H, somewhere in there in that introduction, because we need to have orienting background information. We need to know what this essay is about so that we know where you're going next. So please take a look at chapters 8 and 9 in your OER textbook. That'll help you think more about how to get those bits and bobs in there. And we want to lead your reader to the thesis. And in this illustration, the thesis is the olive in your martini glass. It's the thing your reader sinks their teeth into. It's the substantive statement that tells the reader what the essay is about and where it's going. So we start off broadly, and if you haven't already, take a look at Jennifer Schaller's video that's embedded in chapter 9. You start off broadly with the introduction that might begin with a hook, might begin with background information, and then you narrow, getting more and more specific until you get to your thesis. So an example of this is something you've already read. This you saw when you did your scavenger hunt based on a student essay. You'll notice that the student begins with an anecdote or a little description of something people see all the time. Many people have seen teenagers going about their day with earbuds plugged in or blasting music from their speakers, entirely absorbed in whatever music they may have decided to listen to that day. That introduces the topic with an illustration, and it gives us the who, when, and how. Listening to music is the shared hobby of the current adolescent generation. Little background using what? This pastime causes many people to wonder if the seemingly excessive amount of time the adolescents of today spend searching and listening to music is affecting their emotional well-being. That ends up making it a little problematic. It's raising some questions. Many people, especially parents, getting even more focused, argue and worry that the popular music of this generation is a problem and is collectively sending adolescents down an emotionally slippery slope. That concerns what? As it affects the target audience of parents and other adults, the who. Now, the thesis is responding to that concern with research. It's responding to an implied question. Is this a problem for teenagers? Well, considering this concern, It's encouraging to note that the currently available research suggests that daily music listening is beneficial to the emotional health of teenagers, regardless of the genre they may have chosen to listen to during their adolescence. This is the olive in the martini glass. But we want to grab our reader's attention, and we do that with what we call a hook. Now we can start with a zippy quote or a question. We can start with startling statistics or fascinating facts. We can start with a vivid description, a short illustrative story or metaphor, historical background, a definition of a concept central to your essay's topic. But heads up, do not use a dictionary definition. Use a definition that is from your own making and makes sense in the context of your essay. For more examples, you can check out this link, and I encourage you to do that. But let's start with a well-known article that begins with questions. This particular article appeared in the New York Times. Are you reading this article? As you are reading this article, are you listening to music or the radio, yelling at your children? If you are looking at it online, are you emailing or instant messaging at the same time, checking stocks? This is a hook using questions to grab our attention. Since the 1990s, we've accepted multitasking without question. Virtually all of us spend part or most of our day either rapidly switching from one task to another or juggling two or more things at the same time. Background, when, what, who, and how. It gives us that orienting information of what are we talking about. Well, that's also old school, right? That's what we've thought for a long time, but we're going to move the reader to a new idea. So, while multitasking may seem to be saving time, psychologists, neuroscientists, and others are finding that it can put us under a great deal of stress and actually make us less efficient. Whoa! We know where the essay is going. It's going to explain the backstory about multitasking. It's going to tell us about what neuroscientists and psychologists have to say about the stress that we experience and how multitasking makes us less efficient. We know that's coming. Okay, all of that work just went into the introduction, grabbed us with that hook. Slick. We can hook them with fascinating facts or startling statistics. From Why We Keep Playing the Lottery by Adam Pure. To grasp how unlikely it was for Gloria C. Mackenzie, an 84-year-old Florida widow, to have won the $950 million Powerball lottery in May, Robert Williams, a professor of health sciences at the University of Lethbridge in Alberta, offers this scenario. Head down to your local convenience store, slap $2 on the counter, fill out a 6-number Powerball ticket. It will take you about 10 seconds. To get your chance of winning down to a coin toss, or 50%, you will need to spend 12 hours a day, every day, filling out tickets for the next 55 years. It's going to be expensive. You will have to plunk down your last $2 at least 86 million times. That will grab your attention with zippy statistics. You can grab them with a description. From Living Simply in a Dumpster by James Hamblin. Tucked behind the Women's Residence Hall in a back corner of the Huston-Tillotson University's campus in Austin, Texas, sits a green dumpster. Were it not for the sliding pitched roof and the weather station perched on top, a reasonable person might dismiss the box as just another dumpster, providing this person did not encounter the dean of University College, Jeff Wilson, living inside. Also, attention grabbing. The goal of the introduction is to grab your reader's attention with a hook, provide necessary background information with the 5 W's and the H, and lead to the thesis, which is the organizing idea. Whether shaken or stirred, everything relates to the thesis. Please check out Chapter 8. So yes, the olive can move up and down, but it usually settles at the bottom of that first introductory paragraph. The teeter-totter moves us from an old idea to a new idea. I talked about that in the other video, where you move from old school ideas to new ideas and and in that way present how the essay is going to be structured. You can also use the main idea plus 3, which is where the psychologist where you start with the main idea and support it with the subtopics in order that you will present them in the body of the essay rather. So we're going to know that in this particular, because of the way this thesis is laid out, the essay will tell us about how listening to music helps patients with dementia and how it does so in 1, 2, 3 ways. Each of those chunks will be presented in that order because the thesis said so. Just saying how cool a thesis can be and how helpful it can be to your writing. So you're going to support your paragraphs with your body, support your thesis with your body paragraphs. That's the stem here. This particular part of the martini wouldn't hold up if you didn't have the stem and you wouldn't have the base. You need to have all of those chunks. You'll notice that you will have an outline assignment this week, and the outline will ask you to develop the chunks of those support paragraphs. What are the main ideas that support your big idea, which is the thesis? Those are your themes or your subtopics. And I talked about that in the other video if you want to take another look at that. Okay. There's a PowerPoint in this week's module as well, and please check out Chapter 9 that talks a little bit more about paragraph development. Each paragraph begins with an answer to one of your sub-questions or a thematic statement that says, here it is, this is the topic of my paragraph. So that's your topic sentence or your point. What is the point you're trying to make? The point is a statement. And then you follow that with information from your source. This is your evidence. You can use that as a quote, a paraphrase, or a summary. It can be an observation. It can be a quote from one of your interviews. And then you explain how that quote or that piece of information supports the point or the topic sentence. Each of those elements is going to relate to each other. So the information is the fruit in your pie, and the point is your top crust, and your explanation is the bottom crust. You're going to do that over and over again in a way, but you're going to do it in layers. So please take a look at the PowerPoint that I've offered to you this week about pie paragraphs that includes the notion of the synthesis paragraph that layers information, explanation in the same paragraph as it relates to an organizing topic, sentence, or point. This will make sense when you look at the PowerPoint and when you read the chapters assigned. Okay. Reflect on the main idea in the conclusion. You want to kind of tell your reader, hey, we've been on this journey together and this is what we've learned. And you echo your thesis in your concluding line. Your concluding line and your thesis and ultimately your title should all relate and echo each other. You want to reinforce the main idea and make sure that the essay lands where you want it to be. So, that's the gist of this particular PowerPoint. I hope that's helpful to you. If you have questions, please reach out. And I will be looking for you in my email and messages. Take care.